Fuck
All right.
So you got a motorcycle?
Yeah, I got a motorcycle,
Yeah,
man. I
tell
was
me
gonna
about
bring that up later, but it's pretty fucking rad.
Tell me about it. I just remember you were like, "Oh, I'll wait until we talk about it." So,
Yep.
yeah. What's up with that?
So I got a Kawasaki KLR 650, which it's kind of like an off-roading bike. Like it's close to a dirt bike. They call them adventure bikes, but it's not as light as a dirt bike, so you can't really do dirt bike trails with
Is it like street legal?
Yeah, it's street legal and it goes highway speeds, so it's actually very convenient. And then occasionally the dirt roads are fun. But it's cool. I've never ridden one. I bought that one and I just started learning. And it was a bit too tall for me, but
Gotta be careful on those things, dude. I've heard so many like horror stories of like young dudes crashing and fucking their life up.
Yeah,
I gotta be careful with those.
for sure. My dad's best friend died in one, like a crash, and so I won't be telling him very soon. But
Did you sell your are you gonna sell your car, or are you gonna do both?
I don't have a car.
Oh, word.
I got a truck that is technically my mom's. My car got totaled while I was in Turkey. I came back and found out my car was totaled.
That's horrible.
Can you guess why?
Hey, happy you're home.
Yeah.
By the way,
can you guess how it possibly could have been totaled? It was sitting in my driveway.
did Max hit it?
No one even hit it. No one touched it.
What happened?
Water damage.
Really?
Through the sunroof. Is a 2015 Audi Quattro or Q5 Quattro, yada yada yada. Very fun car to drive. I miss that thing, but yeah, I guess if you don't clean out they have like drains next to it or like underneath where the seal is. I think haven't actually found them yet because I wasn't gonna fix it after the fact.
Right.
But yeah, if you don't clean out the pine needles or whatever clogging it, it will leak through the frame of your car, which is not great.
Not good.
And unfortunately for me, I had an Audi, and Audi, those great engineers, they thought, oh, we'll put the battery and the main control unit in the trunk. So yeah, all the electronics and the battery are like in where your spare tire is. So naturally, water running from the top of your car in your frame to the lowest point without going out of your car is your wheel well.
Oh, dude, that fucking sucks.
Yeah, so my spare tire was full of water, and so was the battery. Batteries are really expensive. And especially for Audis because they're special. And
because don't you have to import them like whenever you get one, like they're made out of the country?
It's been a while. You kind of have to go OEM on it, and then on top of that, this particular one is there was something about how the battery cells were made, and I forget it now, so I'm not gonna try to make something up. And bottom line, the car was worth about $8,000 maybe, because it was used heavily. But the cost of the new control unit and like the battery was close to $6 or $7 grand, and there was like probably mold under the seats. Like the insurance company thought the seats were gone, which maybe they weren't, but I wasn't arguing. They cut a check that was actually pretty good because the used car rates went up right around then. After COVID, all the used cars were worth suddenly like a couple grand more. So
well, that's good. At least you got a little bit more money.
Yeah, and haven't done anything with it quite yet. I've been in the market for a while, but it sucks right now because it's like, yeah, I got more money on my car, but every other car is a couple grand to like.
Yeah, so it like balances out because you're trying to get a new car, and it's. Yeah, so what are you looking at? What kind of cars?
I think I really want a Mazda 3 hatchback, and I just can't justify spending like 20 grand to 30 grand on a car. So I've been trying to find like a good used car price. because they depreciate and like interest rates are so high now too. But what's weird is the interest rates are even higher on like older cars. So I was looking at like a 2015 model, and just to like to go through the process of getting quotes from loans or on loans, it's like 15% just because it's a classic car because it's from 2015. 10 years ago.
That's not a classic car, bro.
I know, it's not.
2015 was like yesterday.
It has Bluetooth. How classic could it be?
Yeah, for real. Like, fuck.
So yeah, that's been tough. But motorcycle's definitely not a something that like replaces a car because you can't drive it in the winter here. When it rains, you don't want to be out in it. And like whenever you got to bring something more than yourself, you got a problem.
So it's just more for fun, just a way to putt around.
Yeah, I'll go up like North Massachusetts up into like New Hampshire and Maine. The roads there are much better. Lots of curves. You don't have to go super fast, but it's fun. And there's not a lot of traffic and people trying to get through traffic being idiots and cutting you off and stopping randomly. The ride over here through Rhode Island, God, I hate Rhode Island traffic.
It is pretty shit.
It's terrible.
Yeah. Especially near Providence, people drive like fucking idiots.
Yeah, like Massachusetts is bad enough because like we have pretty aggressive drivers, but Rhode Island is it's a different breed of drivers over there.
I know people think Massachusetts are the worst, but I am under the persuasion that New Jersey drivers are the worst drivers. Every time I see like a crazed person on the road who's like swerving in and out, cutting people off left and right, beeping, I always look at the license plate and it's like 9 times out of 10 it's like New Jersey. And I'm like, yep. Just.
So funny you say that because like a lot of people in New Jersey, like there's a big population of them that come from like Italy, especially historically, although now it's like maybe it's just its own culture now.
No, I think that's still valid. I think there's a lot of like Italian Americans that live in New Jersey.
Because I really like the way people in Italy drive, but it's not the rules of the road are different. So like people want to pass you on the left in Italy too, and they'll do their like in New Jersey you see people do the high beam flash. And I don't really see it anywhere else when they're trying to pass.
Yeah, they still give you a warning because here they just blow by you.
Yeah.
And like hopefully you don't merge.
So in Italy they were doing a ton of that. That's why you really stay out of the left lane there. Unless you're passing, but when you're passing you don't want to be passing slower than the guy who's going like twice your speed coming barreling down the highway.
This is a dumb question, but is it you drive on the same side of the road as you do here in Italy, or is it switched like in?
No, it's the same as here. So pretty much, the UK is the only real exception in Europe, as far as I'm aware of. For some reason, they decided to do the other side, and because of that, a couple of colonies still do that, or previous colonies. So like Hong Kong. They all drive on the other side of the road.
Same in I went to Bermuda and it was like that too. Because
Yeah.
I think that's one of theirs.
Yeah. The rest of China drives on the same side we do. So it's kind of a weird thing for them, especially now that Hong Kong's kind of like it's part of China again now, and like they lost all their sort of what made them stand out and be different as a like society. It's kind of melding back into the rest of China.
Well, it was always China's goal, wasn't it? They always kind of wanted to kind of have that happen.
So like...
Or am I thinking of somewhere else? Where's the place that's... I'm going to sound so retarded
still
right now.
Contest it?
Yeah.
Taiwan.
That's the one I'm thinking of, yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's the one where China's like, we want to fucking acquire you. Like, they're trying to like reclaim it, and Taiwan's like, no, bro, like we're good, like we're hanging out here, being democratic.
Yeah, so I'll probably butcher the details, but to be like,
That's okay. We're drinking, so
Yeah.
Just to preface, we are drinking and under the influence. So
yeah, I love China. China number
yeah,
one.
China number one. Go Ukraine.
Yeah. So during World War II, I believe, when Japan was really fucking on China and basically conquered the whole place, they kind of left a vacuum once they left. And during that, there was civil unrest. And if I'm saying this correct, if I remember correctly, what happened was the original government of China versus the communist government of China, which ended up taking power. The original government retreated to Taiwan, so that's when they became separate.
Okay,
Because it was kind of
that
like,
makes sense.
Yeah, so they were divided, although they are all pretty much Han Chinese as far as I know. I don't really. I've never been. I've been to China plenty of times, but I've never been to Taiwan, and I don't ask people a lot about Taiwan and China.
Yeah, probably a touchy subject.
It's not as touchy as you think, though.
Really?
Yeah, because like, it's not, for a lot of people, it's just like, there's no different. I met people from Taiwan in China. Like, there's not a, they don't like hate each other or anything like that. But for a lot of people in mainland China, they believe that it's always going to be China. Like, it's not its own thing. They want to reunify. So it's like, it's either like kind of like a patriotic ignorance to it, or it's just that they don't really see a difference. Like, it's more of a political issue that they're not really a part of. And so yeah, it's not that touchy, but like, you're not going to get the Western idea, which is keep them separate.
Yeah. Which is kind of what we, as the United States, favor, because isn't Taiwan a democracy?
Yeah,
I'm speaking purely based on my high school knowledge.
I like that you said that, because I can be like, yes, but the real reason is because they're the number one chip manufacturer in the world, and they can produce things that are really hard to replicate anywhere else, even in the US
Taiwan?
Or China. Yeah. So that's kind of that's a big part of their industry, and that's why.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm just going off of what I learned in school, which is like, they are democratic, China's communist, so naturally China's like, hey man, we're going to swallow you up, and we want you to be communist. But that's interesting that you say that it's really kind of just a power dynamic, and China's like, we want your fucking boats, bro. Like, give us your boats. And Taiwan's like, nah, bro.
Because like, honestly, communism is more of like a economical approach to government, whereas like, democracy is more of like it's a governing approach to government, where like, they're really just focusing on like how your rights are distributed in the society, versus like, communism it ends up having political undertones, but it's really like a form of economy. Because like, and then even then, like, China's not really a communist because they have an open market and like a lot of state-owned companies, but they're still an open market with the rest of the world. And that's how they've been so successful, is they've been like,
well, you need the open market if you want to compete, I think, like, as a world superpower.
Yeah.
Like, you just need the open market. It's just impossible otherwise. I think the biggest difference, like, when I think of like communism versus the fucking other one, what's the word? I'm so fucking dumb.
Communism versus capitalism.
Capitalism, yes. I was going to say democracy, and I was like, well, that's just the wrong word. But anyway, is that the main difference to me is that the businesses, like in China, are tied into the government. Like, they kind of all are just like, hey, like, you are involved in the government.
Yeah.
Whereas in the United States, until you get huge, like, I'm thinking like SpaceX and stuff like that, where you're kind of like having more of an influence than even like NASA, it's like, okay, then at that top level, maybe, yeah, you kind of get absorbed into the government a little bit. But in China, it seems like all independent companies aren't independent fully because they're like part of the government.
Yep. And I would say, like, both government systems offer subsidies and incentives. You know what I mean? Like, it's not even like at the highest levels. It's like we subsidize corn. There's a lot of corn
Right,
in the
yeah,
US
yeah.
because the government pays farmers to grow it.
We were just talking about that on the last podcast when I was talking with Rich, talking about the government subsidies and how they kind of are subsidizing monocrop agriculture, which is really a core issue in the food system. Because then it's like, okay, you're getting all these subsidies to grow corn, but I think people only eat 10% of corn or something like that, and then 90% of it goes to ethanol. So it's just right. So right, we're not even like eating it, and that just is kind of blowing the food system apart. Because it's not just corn; it's like everything is like, hey, we want the biggest onions. Like everything is just like we grow these one things on this place, and it destroys the soil, which in long term just completely obliterates nutrition and the food system. And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, you got to cycle the ground in order to keep different nutrients in the cycle to keep them there.
Yeah, and he was Rich was telling me about something called seed bombing, which I had never heard of, which is where you kind of get balls of compost and manure and seeds and stuff, and you just throw them in a field, drop them out of planes, whatever. Because a lot of times it's just done by hand, and you just throw it, and it spreads naturally, and plants can kind of just grow where they want to grow in that field. So you're not going to have rows of corn, but like you'll have different types of plants. Like herbs will grow where they're happiest. Some plants will seek out where there's more calcium in the soil. It blew my mind because I like that's something you don't really hear about in farming, because most people, when they think of a farm, they think of these giant monocrop farms because that's what exists today. But like it's a interesting way.
So what plants were they putting in the?
Just all types. Like and the result is you get a farm where it's like you have herbs, you have vegetables, you have berries, all these things growing kind of with each other. But like the herbs thrive because they get a little bit of shade from the other plants. And then it's kind of, I mean, obviously at scale, this is what we were talking about too, is at scale, it's impossible to feed the country like that. But I think for medium to smaller size farms, it's a great way to kind of improve the quality of your crop, as well as letting the crop kind of do its thing, which then in turn will improve the biodiversity in the soil, which is really the problem. Because with monocrop, as we go, the biodiversity is just going down and down and down in the soil. And that's just like every year it's less and less nutritional.
Yeah, it's harder to measure stuff like calcium, whereas like you can see like plants spread out into a forest. Like if there's like a forest of trees, you can measure how much energy usage and growth you see based off of the available energy in a system, by measuring how the spaces in between the growths on a tree. What do you call? It's a cut down tree. The rings on that,
like the cross section. Yeah, you get the rings.
Yeah, so you can see the spacing. Each one is a season, right? So you can see by the spacing how fast it was growing. Hardwoods, especially the old growth, were great because they had such tight spacing, meaning they were very dense, and they had better quality because of that. And now, with everything that we're growing, you give it as much light as it can really take because you want it to grow as fast as possible. Those rings space out, but it's not as strong as wood used to be. Even the same type of wood, because you can grow it faster by giving it space. And to the other point is, like in a forest, they only take up so much of the light available. They share it with other trees, and they share nutrition through their root systems. It's very complicated, and utilizing all of that for farming is pretty tough to do.
Yeah, especially at scale. Like some small farms, like I know I saw a video of Noma, the restaurant in Denmark. One of their farms is literally, like looking at it from a distance, you'd think it's just a field of grass. But then you like get up close and there's like asparagus next to like sunchokes and like all these random vegetables. And it's because they use that seed bombing technique. And then they kind of just, when things are ready, like the farmer just walks up and down the field and is like, those look great. And then like takes them at the right time. And then, but that all goes to Noma and like maybe one other restaurant. I'm not too sure. but it's not at scale. Like you can't feed the country like that, but the quality of vegetable that you're getting is probably significantly better.
Yeah, because you find those pockets of nutrition that you otherwise wouldn't even know about. And that is pretty cool. I wonder how they curate the bundle of different plants. Are they all like vegetables?
Yeah, I think for the most part, because I don't know.
And it's a flat field
Yeah.
until they plant.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because like even just replanting that stuff in the forest would probably give you huge yields in specific locations. Like it's pretty cool that near my house there's natural blueberries, like a huge field of them. Like something there is right for them.
Yeah, something in the soil, and they found it. Like some bird shit them out one day, and it's just like, oh yeah, this is a good spot. Let's set up.
Yep. And then that tree grew very quickly, had a ton of blueberries, and then the birds were all around it and dropped it right next to it.
Wild blueberries are so good.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. They're a great little like fruit that just kind of exists naturally.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot in. I remember in New Jersey at my grandparents' house that they had there. They don't have it anymore. But in the backyard, there was just like it was like forest and then blueberries like everywhere, and we would just like go in the backyard, pick some blueberries, just like have a good time, just right there. It's so nice. People don't appreciate like just having fruit. I remember do you remember the Brook Street house when I was growing up? It was the big white house that I lived in when I was like very young, like
I passed by it the other day. I was like, oh shit, there it is.
There was raspberry bushes and blueberry bushes in the back, so we would always, or raspberry bushes along the stone wall, and then in the back there was blueberries. So in the summers, in the spring, we would always like go and pick berries, and so cool.
Yeah, blackberries and raspberries grow. I often find them near stone, like exposed stone.
Maybe they like the minerality.
It might be because they're slightly viney. They don't support themselves very well, and that helps. But I have no idea.
I don't either.
But they grow just out anywhere, pretty much. They're great. We have one in our front yard that just is there. I pour my fish tank water on it to kind of help it.
Probably loves it.
I think it does.
That's what I do on the hydrangea out front. Whenever we're draining the fish tank, I just pour all that right on there. Probably like, fuck yeah, fish poop.
I wouldn't do it while there were fruits on there to eat, but like otherwise, it's pretty good nutrition. I have like a whole ecosystem going on in my tank, or my multiple fish tanks.
Yeah, you have a lot of fish tanks.
I do. It's a problem I have.
Yeah.
Built the stand for it, and then I filled it with tanks. On one stand that I built, I have 3 different tanks: a 50-gallon, a 20-gallon, and another 20-gallon long. And then I have another tank for a different fish that I have that's just too aggressive to put with any of the other ones.
Is that the one that's like longer?
No, I used that guy. Unfortunately, he jumped to his death. I filled his tank up a little too high.
Tragedy.
He was cool, man. He breathed air. Half of his body was lung.
What type of fish was it?
It was a Bashir, a type of Bashir. They're like the first. They're related to the first animal, first animal that made it to land.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like it's a common ancestor we have with them.
No wonder he jumped out.
Yeah, he was looking for the next puddle.
Ancestors. He was like, I gotta fucking get out there and start breathing this air. Poor guy.
I thought about it, man. I put in, so the tank level drops because the air is so dry down there. So like I got to add a lot of water in before I do a water change. But every time I add water in, he probably thinks it just rained.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, now that it's rained, I can go find another puddle. Because this one seems to dry up a little bit.
Yeah, he's like, I'm out of here.
Or whatever it was.
Little did he know he was jumping into a
He jumped
basement.
Straight 5 feet down to the ground. I thought my dog shat on the ground. I looked over. It was like a log this big.
Oh, Jesus.
I was like, damn it, that's a fish.
That happened to Abby's beta fish at one point. Me and my mom were stopping in after something. I don't remember what. This was years ago. We were stopping in at the Grove Street house, and on the counter, there was just like all these brown marks all over the place. And then on the ground, there was like this dried up, crusty betta fish.
Oh man,
It was so sad because we were going there to feed it, like for Abby, because we were all away for a couple days, and we were like, all right, we'll stop in because we're the first ones back, and it was just dead. And I was like, oh,
yeah. I travel for a while, and so I'll be gone for like a month and a half sometimes. I pay someone to come take care of the fish tanks, but he mostly just monitors and feeds them. He doesn't do all the maintenance. So when I get back from a long trip, I'm like, shit, I gotta do 4 tanks. I gotta maintenance all of them, do water changes. I'll do big water changes because we have well water, which is nice, so I don't have to treat any of it. I can just take as much of the stuff out, put the well water in, and then if I need to, I can continue to take stuff out.
why don't you have to treat it? Because it's out of, why is well water okay to do that with instead of tap?
Because the tap water has chlorine in it and probably fluoride too, right?
Yeah.
I don't know how bad fluoride is for anything, but
I've heard it's pretty bad.
I've heard that it is, but it isn't, and it's not a big deal, and people need to get over it. But
I feel like it's not a big deal.
I get why you would be worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's like when you're at the dentist, they're like, "Hey, man, don't swallow this," but then it's like, "Oh, hey, let's put it in the water supply of the population." You know, very interesting. Time will tell.
To be fair, it's a lot more when it's in your mouth. And
Oh yeah,
you're
100%.
getting like a deep cleaning done.
100%. Yeah, and I used to swallow it when I was a kid on purpose too. It's delicious. It tastes like bubble gum.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I'm so
well,
dumb.
the bubble gum does taste like bubble gum, but
because I heard it lowers your IQ. That's like what seems to be happening. But at the same time, it's like, how can you isolate that is what's doing it? Because going back to what we were talking about earlier, like the food system and the food is getting less and less nutritional. It's like, dude, like everything probably ties into that. Like you can't just be like, oh yeah, there's like, 0.001% fluoride in this drinking water, so now everybody's retarded.
yeah,
I just don't think that's like it. How do you even trace that? Maybe I'm just too dumb from the fluoride to
because
understand.
like a bunch of people will be like, all right, we controlled for all these food groups, right? But then it's like, okay, on top of just like the nutritional, like the part of consuming it, like what about everything else in your life? Like how much internet you're consuming,
Right.
Because that makes people very intelligent, like way more well-informed than the previous populations.
That's so true.
As much as it's like, okay, we can all be fooled by things, it's still like, I can understand how to do any service on my car just by watching somebody do it on YouTube.
Yeah, which is incredible.
No one else had that. Like
it really does make you smarter in some ways, like just access to information.
It lets you see many more things happen. It gives you data. It gives you scientific understanding of everything because it's crowdsourced. So, it's incredible. But it has its pitfalls, I guess. Like, people have
obviously.
like brain rot with like TikTok and YouTube Shorts and all that stuff.
That's kind of what I was going to say. Is
Reels.
like I took like a year and a half, almost 2 years off, just had no social media on my phone except YouTube. And coming back to it, I feel like there's some days where I'm like, duh, like staring at my phone. And then there's some days where I don't use it a lot, but then the access to information I have is very helpful. Like I need to know, like, oh, like someone's like, hey man, make a sticky toffee pudding tonight for dessert. And it's like, well, I don't know how to do that off the top of my head, but I can access thousands of recipes instantaneously.
Pull up the chart for the crystal formation over time and temperature.
Right, exactly.
Like you can just find that on Google Images if you need to.
Anything.
And it's like, okay, so I just heat it up to this and then I let it cool. And if it needs to cool for a long time, put a cover over it. If it doesn't, just leave it open. Turn off the heat at the temperature you want to be. And then you just follow that curve, logarithmic. And over a certain period of time, different crystal structures will form, which is the same with metal, but with sugar, you can get different consistencies and textures.
Dude, that stuff is insane. I remember taking baking and pastry and learning that, because I always thought it was like, okay, there's cooking and then there's baking, and pastries is part of baking. And I thought that was it. There's 2 different schools of thought, and that's it. And they tie into each other because you can have savory pastries and you can have sweet entrees and stuff. And but then when you take a baking and pastry course, you realize that bread is its own world.
Mm-hmm.
Sugar is its own world because of what you're talking about, all the different temperatures and tempering and shit like that.
Yep.
Sugar art is fucking crazy. I don't understand how people do it. And then chocolate, dude, chocolate is its own thing. Like, it is so complicated. It is literally chemistry.
The components themselves, the diversity alone is staggering. Then it's like, how do you combine these? And then the combinations. And then how you heat treat it, how you heat treat the ingredients before you put them in. All that stuff. It is pretty incredible.
It's crazy. And then even, like I said, bread is its own category. But then you look into bread and it's like, okay.
Sourdough.
Yeah, you have straight doughs, you have sourdoughs, you have fully leavened doughs, you have laminated doughs. Like, there's so much, and it's all just fucking flour, water, salt, yeast, like that fucking book says. But it's literally all, it's just a couple ingredients in different measurements. And then obviously laminated doughs have fat, but like, it's mind blowing. That's why I really love cooking, because it's like, I'm never going to reach the bottom. You know, I'm never going to be like, oh, fuck yeah, now I know everything.
Yeah,
it's like, it's just impossible to do that in a lifetime.
Biological too, because it's a fungus. Yeast is a fungus that just is able to do what we need it to do.
Yeah, it just pops its pussy when you give it some sugar, and it's like, hell yeah.
Yeah, here's alcohol. We don't like this. But it's a trade-off, because as much as alcohol is bad for you, it used to be what drove people to...
Cheers. Cheers. Speaking of alcohol being bad for you.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Alcohol and whatever else is in this thing.
Too many aromatics. Yeah, if you're ever at Marshall's, I don't recommend those. Maybe there's better ones. Maybe this was just a shitty one, but we also let it sit in the fridge for like a week and a half. So like infused, so because the sugar wasn't
gets strong,
breaking down. So maybe we over infused it.
Here's another thing: brewing.
Yeah, brewing.
Using yeast again in a different way, but you're building like carbs, and that lets. So like people used to drink alcohol because it was easy to produce and it was safe to drink. Because water alone, people didn't necessarily understand, especially not the general population, didn't understand what microbes were. Mm-hmm. And they didn't know that things were like not safe to drink unless you boil them. They found that out by drinking things like tea, where you boiled the water, but then you got herbs added and it added something, so people wanted to drink it. They found out it was healthy, and then down the road you find out, oh, it's because there's bacteria, which is something we know automatically, but people just didn't have that information.
Exactly. And like, that's why pirates were all trashed, because they would just bring rum and wine on the boats, because you're not going to get water. You're not going to get enough rainwater on the ocean when you're out there for 4 months.
Not for a whole crew.
Yeah, no. So you bring rum and you just drink rum and wine. And when you get water, you drink it, and you do your best. But
I'm sure they did cool stuff with the sails, using them as like condensation tarps.
You think?
Smart ones did.
Yeah,
if they ever got the chance to figure out how that process works.
All the successful pirates are like, all right, we just have to catch the water, drain it down the sails. That's very smart.
But at the same time, like, I would expect someone who sails a long time to understand that, especially back then where they didn't have proper supplies like we have everything 100% perfect now until someone shortcuts. Mm-hmm. But like back then, I don't know, I kind of lost my train of thought. The edibles kicking in.
No, yeah, a little bit. Pirates, water purification.
But yeah, so they could put the alcohol in the water and it would help preserve.
Well, they probably never thought of that. They're fucking stupid, dude.
They watered down rum to make it last longer. Which
oh, okay. I guess that is what that is. They're like, this keeps us alive, but it also makes us drunk as fuck. So.
Keeps our spirit good while we're fucking in the middle of the ocean.
Oh man, imagine how depressing that would
be.
No
land, and I'm surrounded by people that are angry all the time.
40 fucking sweaty men with knives and swords, and
like one or two of them are probably dying.
Yeah,
like
no one can read. Everybody's piss drunk.
But because someone lived through that experience, being stuck on a boat, living through every moment of it, noticing all the details, that person probably has a good understanding of their specific field that I feel like people don't get unless you really dive into it. Mm-hmm. It's easy to understand the basics of any concept nowadays, but it's hard to have like true ownership over it in a way that everybody can appreciate. Like there's a lot of craftsmanship that goes into all of those forms of baking.
Mm-hmm.
And it took someone who didn't know they were different disciplines at first to pull it all together and make something out of it that was impressive.
Yeah, or even edible. Because like I think often about bread in the early days, like thousands of years ago, because bread's been around for a long time.
That was just water and
Yeah,
mashed
just
dough.
water and fucking exactly just raw wheat pounded and then water. And it was probably disgusting and would break your tooth. But that's just like what it was. But then somewhere along the way, like over thousands of years, like you get this like beautiful loaf of bread and you're like, wait, how did I do that? And then I still, even now, like anybody can kind of revisit that trial and error process, because nobody, even following a recipe that's dialed in a cookbook, nobody is perfect when it comes to bread making. Like I made recipes in that book multiple times, and the first time I ever did it, it was great. Mm-hmm. And then I did it 3 or 4 times, no problem. And then like randomly, the 5th time I do it, it's just like completely flat, bricked, inedible.
The yeast died.
Right. But when did it die? Did you overproof it? Was there not enough yeast?
Probably when you added the water, it was too hot.
Right. But also yeast isn't salt tolerant, but you add salt to these loaves. So it's like, did I not mix it fast enough? So, because you put the yeast and then you put the salt on, so they're in contact. Mm-hmm. Did I not mix it enough? Did I not have enough gluten? Because the yeast could be alive, but you don't develop enough gluten and it won't inflate. So all these different things tie into it. In like over thousands of years, people are just like, okay, now we have an understanding of it, but you can kind of revisit that as a amateur novice bread maker, because you have to try everything and realize. I literally keep a log in my phone every time I make bread of like what temperature it is outside, what temperature it is in here, if it's moist or dry, and all these different things. And it helps you get to that like troubleshooting where you're like, okay, I know where I went wrong. Just fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's a scientific method.
Yeah. Just for like some bread, which you could go to the store and spend $1.50 on and get a loaf of white bread.
Yeah, and it matters because there's so many little details, like you said, where it just can go wrong. Mm-hmm. And like if you don't understand that, or if you're not expecting it, it can just happen. You're like, oh, what the fuck?
You're really like nurturing. Like cooking is one thing because everything's already kind of dead when you're cooking it. You know what I mean? Like all the vegetables have been cut, all the meat, all the animals are dead. But bread,
except for the lobsters.
For some reason,
we're like, yeah, that's okay.
Well, they break down really
fuck it,
fast.
we'll do it live.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing with lobster. That's actually a really good point, because everything's better fresh. But lobsters and crabs, we enforce that. And shellfish, we're like, you know what? You motherfuckers are dying in my mouth.
There were some restaurants in China where it'd be like hot pot and it'd be a nice formal dinner. I'd have them with the customers that I work with, and it's very nice, like intricate done. Like the sushi, the sushi, they would have the carcass still on ice on steaks. It would still be twitching. And then you'd get like a bowl past you, you'd open the lid, there's live prawns in there. And you just take them out with tongs and you drop them right in your hot pot.
As fresh as possibly can be.
There is nothing fresher than that.
Yeah. It's a weird one, dude. I see people eating that live shrimp salad in Thailand too. You ever see that one?
I've heard of that.
Yeah, you take like live baby shrimp and you mix it up with like citrus and soy sauce and lime and herbs and all these different things. It's kind of like a salad, and then they shake it up and they fucking go crazy. It's called dancing shrimp salad or dancing prawn salad. Yeah, and you open it and they're jumping out, so you have to eat it really fast.
The shrimp are in the worst pain imaginable.
Yeah,
imagine
and you're
being
just like
covered in a lemon juice.
They're in the worst pain imaginable, and you're just like, I guess this is
yummy.
Yeah. Yum. I guess this is all right. It's not even that good. It's terrible.
Yeah.
Eating live things, I feel like there's something just inherently fucked up about it.
I think what's fucked up about it is that it's on a platter for you. It's like somebody like caught this thing, kept it alive, nursed it, and then gave it to you on a platter to just kill. Whereas if you're out in the wild and like you're hunting,
right,
fishing.
Yeah, then you're harvesting. It's a little bit more intimate with the animal. You kind of are able to be like, okay, I'm paying my respects to this animal that I just killed, and then you like harvest it. But you're right there. They're like, hey man, here's this fish. You want to fucking eat it while it's still twitching? And you're like,
You guys like breed them to do this?
yeah. How long has this fish
create
been sitting
a
in
whole
a tank?
system of processing this animal. From like, it's one thing when you're processing an animal and it's dead. Like, maybe the worst thing you do is you're killing it to, like, you know, bleed a fish or whatever it is that you're doing.
But even that's better than how it's going to die.
But when
in
you're
nature.
like breeding it and you're like raising it and keeping a large population of them, like keeping a species alive or making it like cows or pigs or anything like that, like that's a whole fucked up ethical thing that's different than just hunting.
Yeah, dude. Food system, when you everybody eats, you know, 3 meals a day, 2 meals a day, whatever, and nobody really thinks about where the food comes from. Everybody just goes, oh, it's a farm or it's a cow farm. It gets pretty dark when you really like kind of peel off the cover. It's very spooky. That's why I bought the bow. It's because it's like I want to be able to eventually go out and go get some meat and, you know, fill a freezer and just kind of try to eat something that's out of the ring of fire that is the food system. That's the goal, at least, because it's even the difference is going from like Market Basket or Shaw's or something and getting a steak, and then getting a steak from like the butcher shop that I got it from today. It's like, it's just worlds apart.
Yeah.
Just worlds apart.
I've been playing Red Dead Redemption 2, and like the butcher stands out to me, like hunting the animals.
He's my favorite character so far.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's cool.
Well, it's like the same guy, but in every town. And it's got to be one of those things where you are just dirty all the time taking care of that for everybody else.
Like at that time.
The character model is covered in blood. Like there's parts everywhere. Then they're right in the mud.
Yeah, and then they like, maybe once a month they stumble down to the river and like sort of rinse off. But like there's no showers, there's no baths back then. Like everybody's just disgusting.
Yeah, and you'd worry about their health and what diseases they would pick up from decaying live animals all the time. They had salt.
That's a big one. That's a big one.
You'll notice there's
salt was game changing.
Big fucking barrel of salt right next to everything else. Like, you could put your hands in there and like kill everything that was bad for you. And the salt would preserve whatever bits you got in there. It wouldn't be a problem. Just having a stockpile of it would keep you at least alive.
That's why salt was so expensive back then. Dude, cured fish was how people started sailing in Portugal. Like salt cod. You can get it today at the fucking market for like $5, but that's literally how they started traveling. Is they were like, let's just encase this fish or meat in salt, and then we'll just eat it slowly over our journey. So they could go out for months at a time instead of weeks. And that's how they started sailing across and getting to the US.
Yeah, that makes sense. There has to be like the first thing people find and put together that makes long distance voyages and possible. So that's pretty cool.
They should have just made solar panels though, fucking dumbasses. You know what I mean? Like,
dude, they should have taken the salt from the ocean and caught the fish from the ocean.
Yeah.
And just dried the water until it turned into salt. Then they could stay out there forever.
Forever. Could literally stay on a boat forever.
Yeah. How did they not fucking think of that?
Have you ever been to the whale? Have you ever been to the whaling museum over here in New Bedford?
No.
It's really cool, and they have like a quarter scale ship, in part of the museum that you can like go on. And the coolest thing about whaling ships to me is that they had big ass pots, because you weren't really catching a whale to eat it. You were catching a whale for the fat and the oil. Like that was like what they would burn back then.
Until we got to ground oil.
Yeah. Like fossil fuels, which is when we really turned it up a notch.
Yeah, as soon as we were able to make stuff out of what's the name of the? There was like, it's something in Red Dead too. It's a specific type of oil that they were manufacturing from what was seeping out of the grounds back then, and it replaced whale oil. And then all of a sudden, we didn't have to kill them. They didn't go extinct like so many other things, like the buffalo.
Yeah.
They just got lucky. And what sucks is the buffalo died because they weren't like, it wasn't a problem of them killing people or they're like them being like an awful animal to have around you. It was just that they stood in the train tracks. So they didn't want to have them around there because all of a sudden you derail a whole train because they're grazing animals and you put them in the middle of a fucking field.
Yeah. Are water buffalo extinct?
Not water buffalo. Like natural buffalo.
Like the American bison.
Did I say water buffalo?
No, I think I don't know what you said.
Whatever.
One of the two.
The buffalo.
One of them is extinct.
The American buffalo.
Yeah.
There's not any other ones. There's none left of them. That just sucks because it's like, imagine how good that meat probably was too.
It's probably so good.
Probably great. If Native Americans
just eating
pure off of everything from that animal, it's gotta be a pretty good thing to eat.
Yeah, I mean, they're just eating like wheat, like all the beautiful tall grass that was in the middle of America back then, and that's all they're eating. No fucking GMOs, no nothing. They're just doing their thing.
And there's a low ratio of people to wild animal, but wild environment. So you don't need to farm them. They produce at a rate that's at least fast enough for your population to sustain themselves. Like I think that's the biggest difference from then and now, is that we just don't have, everything has to be built up so dramatically because we sustain such a large population.
That's really the problem, isn't it?
It's human nature that it continues and it causes problems that you hate every day, like traffic.
Yeah.
But there's no suggestion that fixes lower. You can't be like, yeah, it'd be great if we lowered the population.
Well, I mean, there's been a couple people that had those suggestions.
People have tried and it's been awful every time.
Yeah, it has. No one's ever really figured that one out.
You make something better and more efficient, and it's great for a short period of time, and then all of a sudden the population catches up because it's made life easier for enough people to have kids to boost the population immediately and have them be able to survive and go on as well.
You want to hear a conspiracy theory?
Yeah, all the time.
Put your tinfoil hat on. But I think that maybe the microplastics that are getting into our food and getting into our water and is becoming part of us, a big thing that's happening with that is it's lowering fertility in men and women. And so actually, like, obviously we're talking about how big the population is, but it's declining. Like, as of late, in the past couple of years, I think since 2019, it's been going down slowly and like very slowly. So it's nothing to, freak out about.
Well,
but
yeah.
I've always thought, what if big plastic or the CIA, someone is like, you know what, Hitler is onto something. We need to fucking lower the population of the world. I mean, he really didn't like Jews as well. But
the CIA,
he's like, we need to lower they're like, we need to lower the populations. Let's put plastic in everybody's shit so then they can't have babies in 50 years. And then population's controlled, boom, problem solved.
Yeah, or like, was COVID supposed to stomp the curb?
Yeah, dude. That's a crazy one,
or
too.
Are we having like flower wars with the global populations? Like, are we fighting over all these things because they're important or because it's profitable and it gets rid of people? Yeah, you could say about anything.
Yeah, 100%, dude.
Humans do these things for no fucking reason, really.
I know, dude. We're all
other
just
than
chill,
to grow.
Man. Yeah, we're just chill, bro. Like, I wish we could all just chill together, like the whole world. Imagine if everybody could chill together in the world.
Dude, people are people, though. Like, everywhere I've been, even in China, where it's like that government and our government really don't get along. The people are just people, and they can be really great people, or they can be scam artists.
Right, but that's in every culture.
That's in every culture.
In America, India, everywhere.
Especially where there's tourists, because they can prey on that vulnerability. But I was in like the middle of nowhere in the Gobi Desert, and it's like, that's a small city that exists there. And it's interesting because it is just a city. It's like a desert, and there's no suburbs, and then it's just the end of the city lines in a kind of a grid. And that's it. So the people there are super nice. Like, it's like being in a small town. People there, they've never seen a foreigner. or they've seen a few, but very limited. I've been in places where I'm the first foreigner that people have ever seen. And it's like, they're like bewildered, you know? But it's less and less because people are connected on the internet too.
That's just going to keep going too. We're all just going to get closer and closer.
Yeah. But still, the thing I'll say is like, people are people. And like, I've met some really great people that have trusted me and I've been able to trust them. And like, I've been like, I'll go get beers with a few of them that I meet on the job site or just while I'm about. And it's like, they'll let me drive their moped by the end of the night, you know? Like, it's fun. They're very great people, even though like we're supposed to like hate the Communist Party and all of what's wrong with China taking over our economy. But the people are great. Like, there's nothing wrong with them, and there's nothing wrong with us in the same fashion. It's just that there's a government trying to take...
It's really the governments that are the loudest, but the people are probably all just like, you know, they probably invite you into their home for dinner if you needed it, you know? And there's people like that everywhere. It's very interesting, human nature. But then when power is in play and influence, it's when people start going crazy.
Yeah.
I laughed earlier because we went from motorcycle to China in like what felt like 5 minutes. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm trying to segue into stuff that I figured I'd want to talk about, but I'm also trying not to force it. And like, whenever it comes up, I'm like, yeah, I could talk about that now.
Well, we can talk about it. I
mean, we're just jumping from thing to thing.
Yeah, which is kind of the point.
Fun.
That's the point. That's why, like I was showing this to Abby and Luke, who are editing it right now, and he was kind of like, "Oh yeah, like you should use Riverside, which is like this podcasting application, which I might still use at some point because it seems pretty convenient. It's like made for podcasting." And he was like, "Oh, it breaks it up into chapters and it writes a dialogue for you. Like it uses AI and all this stuff to kind of like
what my
dial
phone
in.
thing that
Exactly
I just got
what
for
you showed
Christmas.
me earlier. Yeah,
Yeah,
it just kind of simplifies the process." And he was like, "Then we can break it down into chapters and edit it that way." And I'm like, I don't want it to be edited at all. Like I went pee on the second episode, I think, and I was like, I forgot to take off my mic. So it's like, obviously cut that out. No one needs to hear me fucking take a fat whiz. But like, so far I've been trying to just keep it like, we're just talking, because the first one I wrote like 30 questions and I was like kind of trying to do it like an interview a little bit. But I realized even halfway through the first episode, I was like, I don't need the page. I never even looked at it once. I was just doing the questions from memory. I think I will write questions going forward for people I don't know personally, and especially if I want to know something specific. But I think so far what's been kind of natural for me is just like talking like this. Like I'm never trying to bring anything up. I mean, Rich was on the last episode. I know he makes cheese, and I never asked him about it.
But you want to know.
Right. So at some point, just naturally, I was like, oh, like talk to me about cheese making. So yeah, we can just like jump into that though. So where are all the places that you've traveled for work in the past couple of years? Because I know you've been kind of globetrotting a little bit.
I've been to, the first one was easy, Canada. Went up there for a week. Then the next one was like 2 months after I started, or it was the third month. And they sent me to Turkey by myself to go take care of a steel mill. And I was there for like a month and a half. And then I've been to China like 4 or 5 times now, and different parts of China, because there's a lot of steel manufacturing there. My company basically makes steel wire, steel rod, but we design the solutions for them. So for different steel mill companies. And yeah, so I go to commission all of them, set up lube systems, all that sort of stuff for taking care of all of the many systems in a giant factory. But yeah, after Turkey, I went to China for the winter. I had a Thanksgiving away from my family. I got KFC in a bucket.
Nice.
That was...
At least it's still a bird.
Yeah. And the next day, the customer took us out to like get turkey, which is not something they eat there at all. my boss was there 10 years ago. He said they shot a turkey in one of the zoos so that they could have a turkey for Thanksgiving.
Dude, imagine you're a turkey in China and you're in a zoo. You're like, dude, we're so safe right now. We're so chilling. Someone walks in there, it's just like, bang!
Yeah.
There's an American here. They want to eat you.
We don't know why they would think you're tasty. You look disgusting, but there's a picture of the turkey too, so I know he had it.
Oh, Jesus. Poor turkey.
Luckily, we had ours in a very amazing hotel, like on the top floor. It was the tallest building in the developing city around it, so you could see everything from there. It was pretty cool. It was like 40 stories tall. It was dope. Every day for breakfast, I'd go up there and have whatever I wanted from a buffet, and I'd look. It was like a panoramic around the entire city. You could see everything.
Jesus. What kind of food was there at those buffets? Oh, you want to join this one? You haven't joined the podcast yet.
Hi, kitty.
This is Oat, everyone. This is her first appearance, I think. Yeah. She's a pain in the ass. But yeah, what kind of food were at these buffets?
So like that place was like a Marriott, and like it's a very new one. So they're like branching into China now, or they probably have been for a while. But man, it was very impressive. It was like state of the art stuff. It would be what you'd expect at a Western style, like breakfast, but it's the only place in that whole area that can really do that. Otherwise,
so it's like eggs and bacon and
yeah,
sausage.
You could also
pancakes.
get like noodles, and like you could get dumplings for breakfast, like wontons. They'd have special custards. There's like a cream custard one that they do with like a flaky crust, and I find that very, very good.
It has a flaky crust and custard on the inside.
It's like it's basically like a mini pie. It's like a mini custard pie.
Oh, okay, like an egg custard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, cool. Those are amazing.
They do those really well there.
They're big on custards and
not big on sugar. That was the biggest difference. You'd have a dessert and you'd think, oh, this is going to be a sweet bread. Nothing at all.
Almost neutral.
Yeah.
I kind of like that though. Sugar is so unfortunate for the body.
They would have the brightest colored frostings and stuff, and the bread itself. They would color it and make it look super nice and presentable, and you'd bite into it and it would be like eating a sponge.
They love the spongy texture over there too in Asia. I know in Japan they have those banana candies in the airport. My friend's family brought me some one time, and it's very much like, okay, I'm eating a banana flavored sponge right now. Mm-hmm. It's not very pleasant. I don't really enjoy it, but they kind of love that. Are you thirsty, Oat?
What's the name of that fruit? Durian?
Durian, yeah. Oh, the stinky one?
I had that in China. They some people hate it over there. Some people really love it. I didn't find it to be super tasty, but it wasn't as off-putting as people made it sound. It's got a kind of a bad smell, but it's
people say it's the stinkiest in the world, and everybody makes a fucking big deal out of it.
It's got like a sting to it almost. It's not a sting. I don't know how it's to describe the punginess of it. Because it's almost meaty and it smells like kind of like decayed meat a little bit. Like you get like a sense of whatever chemical compounds exist in both things.
Mm-hmm. I love how she just sniffed that and made me plug it in just so I can unplug it.
And now she's gonna go back to
now she's gonna be like, dude, where's my water? You're torturing me. Yeah, one day we're not gonna do this podcast in here because you guys make a lot of noise. Yeah, look, now she wants water. Now that I fucking turned it off. You're fine. Lick the condensation. You're fine.
There's water in the little thing, in the little bucket.
All right, cool. As long as she has access to it.
No, but she doesn't really want water.
Oh.
She was just curious.
She's just curious. She's like, wait, why is this off?
You have power to turn this on and off? What is this magic? Animals have no fucking idea what the hell we do.
No, dude.
Like, what is that thing to this cat? Probably doesn't matter that much, but still, what is that thing? It's just an orb of light.
Sayana was telling me the other day that, I mean, I'm pretty sure she saw this on TikTok, so take it with a grain of salt. But she was saying that AI is helping to make people be able to understand pets and what they're saying and their thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
And my first reaction was like, I don't want to really know. I kind of like them being like little silent friends they're almost like spirits. They just kind of wander around our house, have a good time. They can express themselves to us. Like I feel like I know what they're thinking and feeling a lot of the time. But I feel like if you could like fully understand them, especially like dogs, it could be like really depressing sometimes. They could be like, dude, like I am fucking trapped here.
Too.
Yeah.
Please let me go fuck that dog.
Yeah,
please let me go fuck
God,
that dog.
I want to fucking that dog across the street.
Yeah.
Or maybe, I don't know. I'm assuming that it would be like, God, I want to leave. Like, let me out of here. This is hell. But at the same time, maybe they're just like, what's up, dude? Like, maybe they're like, I fucking love it here. You guys feed me. We get to sleep all day. Like, no one's eating me.
It feels like it would be almost like the Full Metal Alchemist chimeras. You know how that little girl gets turned into like a half dog? It's like she can communicate, but all of a sudden she has been put in a very bad situation that she will never recover from, which is tragic. But it's like, do you want an animal to be able to, I guess to be able to communicate them would be nice. Communicate with them. But yeah, there'd be some weird conversations.
Yeah, or what if you can hear your dog's thought, or what if you could hear your cat's thought and your cat is like, fuck me, fuck me, fuck me. And that's all they ever say, dude. That would be, you're like, I can't keep you.
Yeah.
I can't keep you anymore.
That's not what I thought this relationship was.
I thought we were like just friends. That would be uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't know. Because
how many people would hear that and then be like, bet. And then people would just start fucking their cats, fucking their dogs. And they're like, dude, the dog told me to. I used
the dog
AI.
consented.
It consented to me fucking it. So what are you going to say? It's like, oh man, I hope that's not the way society goes. That would be not Cash Money.
You want to give an animal like a fun life for the simple creature that it is. And you want to understand your animal, but like you don't want to like give it a small life that you're God over.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you want it to just be able to enjoy the life that it might maybe not naturally have, but obviously survive and thrive in.
100%. Well, most animals naturally would just die. Like they just get, if we let these guys outside, they'd get fucking either hit by a car or eaten by a coyote within a week.
Yeah, and they don't have the upbringing to think to hunt and all these things like that.
But I feel like hunting is kind of programmed into specifically cats. Because like we have mice in our basement here. And the other day, we woke up and Oat was just like going crazy, just meowing and like not stopping.
It's instinct for them. I feel like it's
she brought up a mouse. Dogs. She left it next to the bed. So they killed a mouse. And I mean, I think they killed it. Maybe they just found it dead. But my thinking is that they killed this. Right, they killed this mouse and they brought it to us. No, no. But they brought, and it looked untouched. It looked like it was sleeping.
It was fresh then.
It must have been fresh, yeah. Because I've seen the not fresh ones in the basement when the mouse traps get them. Fucking maggots and shit. Ugh, so disgusting, dude.
Yeah, it's bad.
Maggots in movies are one thing. Seeing maggots in real life, you're like, oh, gross. Like that's real.
And then you know every time, like we had an animal die on the wall at my house, and you didn't know where it died, but there was a sudden spike in like flies. Like, that's maggots eating a decaying corpse somewhere that you can't find.
What died on your wall?
It's probably like a mouse or even a squirrel. We've had squirrels in the attic. That's been an issue. Even raccoons. Jesus.
Well, because you guys are right in the forest too. Your house is like tucked in.
Yeah, and there's a lot of branches that have grown over the house because you open up light and all of a sudden these trees want to grow.
Yeah.
Circle back on that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had to rodent-proof the attic, but something got in the walls and died. I've heard mice, so we definitely have a few. When you have a few, you probably have a ton that you don't know about.
Yeah, 100%. We see them every once in a while in the basement. I've only seen one once alive, but I've got many of mites with mouse traps over the time. It's like an ongoing war. They just keep reproducing.
And it feels cruel because they're fucking adorable, but you have to separate yourself from that and be like, well, this is costing me a lot of money to take care of.
It is sad. It always is sad, but I am a little happy when the mousetrap catches them perfectly, like right here, like right on their fucking forehead. I'm like, okay, cool. You died. Like, you don't even know what happened.
Like that.
Yeah. But then you get the really sad ones where it's like, it's got their fucking leg or like it hits them in their lower back. And you're like, oh, dude, you were probably paralyzed for like a day.
And the glue traps.
I think the glue traps are fucked up. I don't use glue traps.
Yeah, I think
those are absolutely just wrong.
They chew off their own fucking body parts to get out of them. And then
stick to it again.
Yeah. And
it's so...
They just don't understand. They're like, think about what state of mind you'd be in chewing off your own limb.
Yeah.
Like, it's like that one guy who got stuck in the canyon and cut off his arm.
What is it, 127 hours or something like that? Yeah. Probably got that number wrong. Not great with numbers.
No, actually, he was in a glue trap.
Chews his hand off just to crawl 1 inch forward, stick again.
Oh, fuck! God damn it!
Yeah, I mean, it's just like hunting. It's like you're always trying to give the animal
suffering.
Yeah, the most ethical death you possibly can, while giving them fair chase. And I feel like that's exactly what traditional mouse traps are, because it's like you put bait out, a dumb mouse is going to be like, "Oh, food, cool," and then we'll just go over. But then smart mice will just not do it. You know?
And smart mice won't just walk around in daylight.
Yeah.
And
so all the smart ones are in the walls still.
They're
just
in the fucking walls.
They're in the pipes. And they're just hanging out and like reproducing. But then all the dumb ones are just like, peanut butter.
Or they're just walking along, don't even notice it. And
they don't even notice the trap, dude. They just walk over it. Oh my God.
You think they tell each other stories about them and that's how they learn?
What, like some of them survive it?
Don't fucking go that way. You see Todd over there? He's 2 pieces over there.
Yeah.
There's a fucking animal that just picked one of us up with its fangs. They died instantly.
Instantly.
Or like they got scratched and then paralyzed from the symbiotic bacteria that lives in cats' claws.
Oh, shit. That's a thing?
That's a thing.
I didn't even know that.
It's like they paralyze them with disgusting paws.
Which is just bacteria?
Yeah,
they paralyze
bacteria.
them? Oh, what the fuck? That's crazy.
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
I wonder what happens when they scratch us if we get a little percentage of that.
I think that's why it's like very red and like protruding wound when you get scratched. I've always noticed that it's like red around that and like it kind of like pops out a little bit more.
Just that bacteria that immediately enters it.
Yeah, you gotta wash those wounds. Definitely. Some Dawn dish soap.
Sponsored.
Get over the tub. Get it. Bring it over here.
I need another drink.
I still have this. It's more watered down. It's okay, honestly, but it's not refreshing.
I'm just traumatized from last time I had it. It's a vodka mix from Marshall's, and we put so much milk in it. I don't really love cow milk. And
milk.
Yeah. Well, it's almond milk and oat milk and such. But I was drinking like whole milk.
Where's the tit on an almond?
It's just the nipple. Dude, people think almond milk is good. We were talking about this on the last one too. People think almond milk is great. But do you know how much water it takes to make 1 almond?
Yeah.
It's like 4 gallons or 8 gallons or something like that. It is the most water usage in plant growth that exists.
And we do it in the fucking deserts.
Yeah, we do it in the deserts at scale to give the world almond milk.
United Everett's fucking buys property in the U.S. to use up all our water to do it.
Yeah, and then meanwhile people are fucking dying of thirst. So silly.
There used to be a giant lake over in California, like that spanned almost the entire length of the coast, but was about, I don't know, like 100 miles inland.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it was a huge lake that slowly dried up over time, and then that valley formed. I don't know. I've been to San Diego once, but not all of
That's
California.
interesting.
Yeah.
And dude, it's dry over there. I was just in California, and when we were over there, you're driving through the mountains in Napa and Sonoma, and it's like there's little mini fire stations everywhere, and then all the fire signs that are talking about like the risk of fire that day.
Yeah.
It's like extreme risk, like as high as it possibly could go.
And there's forest fires happening all the time, which
All
is
the time.
like, I guess, something that happens all over the earth all the time. But
Yeah.
it like, how old are those trees? Those like redwoods? Like 600 years old, 1,000 years old.
I mean, the big ones have to be. They're fucking ginormous.
So what killed all of them
What's interesting
2,000 years ago? Like that, all of that old growth is gone. Do they just die?
Oh, true.
Yeah.
Just get too big and fall, maybe.
Does the environment dry out?
Well, what's interesting about redwoods, I just learned this because we were in a redwood forest when we were in San Francisco. I forget what it's called. Fucking Muir Woods, I think. But there's burnt redwoods everywhere, but just at the bottom. And I asked about it, and they don't burn because they're so big and they're so wet on the inside.
Yeah,
That
the outer
shell will burn, the bark will burn, but the redwoods can't really burn down. I mean, obviously, if you cover them with gasoline or napalm, they would, but like just naturally with a forest fire that's really just burning low, it'll climb up the tree about 20 feet and then it'll just stop. So there's all these burnt trees around you, like in the national forest. Very interesting.
Yeah, because the outer layer minus the bark is like basically just capillary veins of the tree. Like all the living part of the tree is on the outside, and that holds all the water, and that's what it's just like a protective layer. For something that massive, I'm sure it's a lot of water. Have to burn very hot to do damage.
Oh yeah.
And a lot of trees like drop seeds after fires too. Like it's part of the system that naturally occurred for thousands of years.
Mm-hmm.
But we just dried up all the water in like 200 years. Like an entire lake that used to be around that forest, I believe. I don't know that much about California, but I know that there was a lake, and it's gone through rerouting of the river that spans the western side of the United States.
It would suck to run out of water. That's really what Mad Max is all about.
Yeah, they had a good video game too.
Really?
I've enjoyed every movie.
I haven't played the video game.
I watched the one that's a prequel to the
new one with the dude that plays Thor. What's his name? Chris Hemsworth.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yep. Good movie.
They're great. They also don't use CGI, which I feel like makes them so visually just stunning, because it's all just every explosion you see, all the cars, all the stunts, everything is happening on camera.
It's so fucking cool. Very, very talented crew put that stuff together. You know, like how like action movies are a little bit like shallow in terms of plot sometimes. Yeah. I'm not saying that movie was beautifully written like any other thing that's solely focused on the plot, but you have to respect all the other efforts that go into making something so like cinematographically beautiful and like well crafted.
Jesus, I can't even say that.
Did I say it right?
Cinematography. Cinematographic.
Cinnamon.
Cinnamon
is great, but we're not going to talk about cinema anymore.
Cinematographic. I think that's what you said. Cinematographic.
Yeah.
Is that a word?
That's probably not right, but you get all like the roots, and language is really about...
I understood it.
Yeah, if you understand it, the language worked.
At some point, I want to do this podcast with like someone producing it, like someone here sitting with us with a laptop.
Keeping us on track.
Yeah, not even to keep us on track, just to fact check.
Jamie, pull that video up.
Jamie, pull that up. But I think
that's... Show me this guy's balls.
I always thought it was like you don't... That was making a weird noise.
It's like there was glass in there, or like an ice cube.
Yeah, it sounded like ice. I think it was just like the vibrations or something. I don't know. What were we talking about just now? Someone to keep us on track
over there to keep
Yeah,
us
yeah,
on track.
just someone to like fact check. Because even Rich last time on the last one, he texted me. We were talking about milk, and he sent me something later. He was like, "What did he send me? I don't have my phone. It's fucking over there." But he was talking about something that he said was wrong, and I was like, "Don't worry about it." But it made me start thinking, like, in the future, I kind of want someone to just sit there and as we talk, like we're talking about like Taiwan and China and shit. It's like, it'd be nice to at least, I want to be objective. Like, I want to not just sound like a
having
retard.
the AI fact check would
Yes.
be great. I could see that, and I could see having them cut up shorts for you automatically.
That's something I'm going to look into, because I eventually, so I just got a new PC. I just bought a new one. It's coming in later this month. And eventually my goal is to kind of just do the editing for this independently, because I think that that's great. I don't have to pay anybody long term. But my computer just wasn't up to date. Like I had like 16 gigs of RAM, 1050 or 1080 Ti graphics card, i5 processor, like just old parts in 2018 when I built it that I was still trying to use today. So I just got like suited out. I mean, not top of the line because some of the parts were sold out, but like 4070 Ti graphics card, i9 processor, 64 gigs of RAM. Like, I'm just like, fuck it, dude. I'm going to spend $3,000 on this, because going into the future, it's like I'm actually making content. So it's like I'm going to eventually be editing this, and watching them try to edit it on 16 gigs of RAM was painful, because especially the short cooking videos, because I was shooting them in 4K. And editing in 4K is just, you need a strong computer. Yeah, so much data.
Yeah, because RAM's there, from what I understand, to give your computer the ability to hold all that information close to the processor, to speed up the ability for the processor to get through it. I never really thought about it, because with like gaming now, you don't really need a lot of RAM.
No, 16 gigabytes, you can play pretty much everything. It doesn't really affect it too much.
It's not like video editing where you have a whole timeline, sometimes spanning multiple hours, full of different clips and things like that. That's
different clips, audio, like all this different stuff. But yeah, gaming is more about, I feel like the graphics card and the processor really affect it. But RAM is kind of like whatever. As long as but once you have, like, if you have a YouTube video going, while you're having a couple Google tabs open and you are playing a really hard game, then then it's like, okay, now your RAM won't keep up. I normally build PCs. I built a couple PCs, and then I built my own, and I was planning on doing that eventually. I even bought a case for a PC, but I ended up just buying a pre-built, because honestly, I just was like, I don't want to sit on the floor for 6 hours and troubleshoot this. Like, it's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, I've helped my brother, but he knows a lot more about building them than I do. I understand the components. I don't know how you like make sure everything works together. Because every time I've built one, I've understood that the parts are compatible, but I don't know why they're compatible and what differences there are.
That's really hard to know, even just like off the top of your head. Like, I use PC Part Picker or like Newegg.
You can do a computer model that takes care of the guesswork, like Rock Auto or
You're just like,
O'Reilly's.
Okay, I know that I'm ordering these parts, and I put it in this system. It has told me it's compatible. Because the worst thing is you go through all this process, and then like you got a motherboard that doesn't take the proper RAM that you bought, and now you're like, fuck, dude. Like, now I got to order something else.
And return this thing that
and also
opened.
You opened it, and now it's less valuable. And then also, like, bottlenecking is a thing. We just ran into that the other day, because I was like, oh, you can't edit on your old PC. I'll just buy you more RAM. So I bought 64 gigs of RAM for this motherboard, or this Luke's computer, and to do the editing for this. And it just would brick it. Like, we'd put it on and it literally just wouldn't turn on. Like, nothing. Like, no signal.
With it.
And so we kind of were like, we don't know what's happening. But he looked into it later and said that it was bottlenecking. So we just had too much RAM on it that the motherboard just could not take it. It just it blew its mind. That's how I think about it.
I didn't even think about it like that. I mostly thought about this component doesn't click in.
Yeah, well, no, that's the thing. They click
Which is
in,
like mechanically
it's the
inclined.
right. It's the proper RAM, but software wise, it tries to turn on and it's just like freaks the fuck out. It doesn't even. It just black screens.
All holes filled.
yeah. It's like, nah, bro, you're not doing that. But yeah, so he's actually upgrading his computer too to help with this editing, which is great. I'm using it as a tax write-off because technically it's for marketing. Because I have an LLC and a tax ID number. So
if you're using it for business, it's a business.
Yeah, I'm going to be. These videos are marketing for really just the website.
And if it's a loss on your net gains on your LLC, it's capital loss, and or maybe not capital loss, but it's a loss you can deduct from your taxes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
$3,000 off. It's not insignificant.
You spend money to save the money that you give to the government.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing you do with a 401k. Or, yeah, it's not taxed now. Mm-hmm. Probably down the line it'll get screwed up, but...
Oh, yeah. The government always gets their piece.
Yeah, but you get to put a little bit... But the money doesn't get taxed now, so you get to put more money in the principal to let it take off. Which is, I don't know. It's nice. I've been getting into that stuff lately.
Investing?
Yeah, but it's not something I understand enough to be like, yeah, okay, I'll tell you what I do, and this is what works for me.
Yeah, I think people who day trade are locked in. Like you have to be, to do it properly, you have to be locked in.
Aware of the market.
Yeah.
The
the
social media.
Yeah.
Like so much stuff is propped up with social media that it becomes an event of itself. And people follow that rather than looking at what's actually driving up the value of the stock and what value that stock actually has, other than people thinking it's a thing that everybody's making money off of.
And that's the problem with.
I don't know enough about the volume of sales that occur when these social events happen to really say that's true. But I imagine if you saw you can see pump and dump strategies happening with some of the cheaper, less the newer stuff, like the Huck to $1 or whatever.
The Huck to a coin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, is the cryptocurrency.
Yep. Yeah.
Is exactly that. Just pump and dump.
It's only valuable because we think it is. Like all currency is. But there's no backing in actual... There's not like gold or silver backing like there used to be on currencies that started. We're off the gold standard. We don't really keep an equal amount of money to gold or any other material. So it's all kind of like pixie dust and whatever we decide it's worth. But yeah, crypto is just like a new version of that someone on social media made for you to get hype over so they can sell all theirs when enough people buy in. That part of investing is pretty dark.
Yeah, I don't really get into it. I was thinking about putting $2,000 into Bitcoin at one point just to leave it there and sit there. But then everybody's like, that's dumb.
There's so many other ways to make a safe return on your investment to do first, like a 401k. Because you're getting tax savings on that, which is when your income is taxed almost a quarter of its value. Tax breaks make a significant aspect of your overall investment strategy.
And when people get really wealthy, that's really the name of the game, is taxes. Nobody's because if you make $1 million in a year for your job, you're paying 49%. So you're only going home with $490,000, which is obviously a lot of money. But why work hard and make $1 million a year when you're going to get taxed 50%? It's
diminishing returns. And so, yeah, you're right. At a certain point, it's like, I'm happy with my lifestyle. Why should I try to make more money? But nobody's ever happy with their lifestyle.
No, dude. And that's just human nature.
Yeah, because you're bored and all of a sudden you need a new thing. Or else you feel like you're dying. That's what boredom is feeling like your mind is coming to a standstill.
And some people can really just do one thing forever. And that kind of always stresses me out a little bit, you know?
Yeah, I don't want to do one thing forever.
Like, I think it's good to mix it up. I think it's a balance because, like, Rich that I had on the other day, he's moving to New Zealand right now, and he's like a
Fuck.
nomad, dude. He's like a cheese making, cooking, wine making nomad because he'll work somewhere for 3 or 4 months and then be like, I gotta go. Like, he's all about traveling, getting out there, and I think that that's like crazy. Like, just getting out there. I definitely want to do some of that, but
Traveling is fun. I didn't mention I went to Japan and Italy in the most recent trips. Those places made up for being in some not so nice, great places. Like in Japan, I didn't have a single bad meal, and I think that's the same story in Italy. You know,
everything is delicious.
yeah. I mean, I had quite a variety of foods in both places, and I didn't really like. I could see why some stuff was bad, but in Japan, you could go to like a 7-Eleven and get like lunch for the day. I would buy breakfast there every day for like a month and a half. I know everything that a Japanese 7-Eleven can have.
People love that stuff. I see people all the time going to 7-Elevens online. And,
There's really great stuff
yeah,
there.
you can get like sashimi.
Yep.
You can get really great ramen.
The donuts that they had this curry donut, which was like a Boston cream, but filled with delicious Japanese curry.
That sounds fucking amazing.
So it was this fried dough with curry in the middle. Best fucking breakfast you could ask for. And like I'd get like the classic whipped cream and jam crust cut off of it sandwiches that you can get there. Those are very good. It's like a dessert. They had great desserts there. They had a ton of like bakery items, freshly made and sealed, but like it's just like they package stuff so neatly and nicely and keep stuff fresh. They'll sell all the food that they prep in like grocery stores at the end of the night for a discount. So I'd go and get like supermarket sushi there, or like entire curry meals or whatever it was that they had. You could get it for like a few bucks.
Which is amazing. Like, I wish we kind of did something like that, because where does all the food go at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm.
Especially like in a big ass supermarket like Market Basket, they have that hot food section. How much of that is getting taken home?
Yeah, because how many people would wait till the price drops to an affordable amount?
Yeah.
Like
Do you know how many homeless people are sitting outside of Market Basket? If they could go and get some chicken or some just whatever, like that's in that some soup that's extra in the hot section, you're not going to use it the next day. It's going to go bad. Okay, sell it to them for $1, $2. It's like then people can eat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that'd be a great way. And then because if it's going in the trash, it's just going to the fucking like trash island, bro.
Panera Bread or
yeah,
whatever bakery you have, they're going to be tossing out all the old stock. And everybody's heard stories about places like that establishment not allowing homeless people to eat the stuff they throw away in the trash.
Which is just fuck, dude.
It's like, yeah, because this economy is in a... Like, all right, who wouldn't feel like it was too great of an inconvenience to stay until midnight to get like 50% off on your meal? There's like
it would literally change the supermarket market, because what would happen is people would shop in the day that were just shopping and want to pay full price, and then at night grocery stores would get crazy again.
Yeah.
Because then everybody who's low income or just doesn't have enough money to be spending that like type of stuff, they'd go and they'd buy all the extra food. But it eliminates waste. It helps feed people in lower income, which is great. The only downside is you'd have to change how supermarkets work, because you need to keep people there later, which would affect labor costs heavily. Mm-hmm. And you're not really getting more money because you're selling it at a discount.
Yep.
But it would be busy, so you need to pay labor, and people need a living wage. So it's like, how do you do that?
Well, that's what it is it's a controlled market. They could do that, but because, they wouldn't sell at a big enough profit, it makes more sense to waste that product than it does to sell it for a low cost, because otherwise people wouldn't pay for it at the cost that they're selling it at during the day.
Then maybe they should just have like a donation center where at the end of the day, like, okay, Market Basket just gives all of their food that is, it meets its sell by date, and then you just give that food away. Then you don't have to pay your labor, but then someone can work at that donation center and sell it the next day at a discount.
Well, lad, that would be subsidies.
Yes.
And that's a problem, because you have the greatest of intentions, but then all of a sudden you're making money giving food to these waste centers. So you're overproducing food to have more waste.
But why can't we just
make some middle ground and make it happen?
Why can't we just do that and not be scumbags? Like,
I don't know, man. Why can't we just not make as much?
Food or money?
Food.
Because people got to eat.
Yeah, people get bored. People want more.
I know, and that's really the core of the...
We could survive off of like a set chemical concoction.
A pill. We could all take pills every day and be fine.
And calories. But you could get your nutrition from a pill and your calories from...
a paste. Yeah. It's like oats.
But nobody wants that.
Exactly.
We want the nice thing. But there's too many people.
That's what's interesting about food to me, is like, it's kind of an art in a way when you get into fine dining, and the techniques that they use. But then at the same time, everybody has to eat in the entire world a couple times a day, maybe once a day, to stay alive. So it's a necessity, but it's also something that can be a luxury.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just that full spectrum, and nothing's better than anything else. It's all just like, I don't know. I find that really cool. Like, when I was in New York, we went to the Modern with Yash because he works there, and we got 50% off because he works there. And guess how much the bill was?
Where?
At the Modern.
You said it's a Michelin star? Or
2 Michelin stars.
2 Michelin star?
Yeah, we were in the bar room, so technically it's like not the 2 Michelin star part of it, but we were eating dishes from the dining room.
Like 1,000?
50% off.
500?
It was like $650, pushing $700. So if that wasn't 50% off, that meal would have been almost $1,400. Crazy. I forget where I was going with that. Oh, I remember. Because that was delicious food. It was very rich. It hurt my stomach a little bit. It was a lot of butter in that, because it's French food. Delicious. Definitely fun. Had a great time. And that night at 2 a.m, we went out and got tacos at Taco Mix in Harlem. Like $15, $14. Incredible, dude. Fucking beef tongue taco. I got an al pastor.
Yeah.
Chicken. I got a spiced pork. They got like a fresh salsa verde that they make there. It's probably been sitting in the bottle for a week. Not fresh. But dude, that shit smacked. And then we went down the street and we got a piece of pizza, $1.50. Smacked. So it's like nothing's better than anything else. You can literally go from a $1,400 meal to a $1.50 slice of pizza. In both of them, while I was eating them, I was like, this is awesome. Like,
yeah.
But dude, one of them comes with...
You could get a bowl of wonton soup in China that was delicious for like $1.50. Or less. Sometimes not even $1. It was insane, the quality of food you could get. I mean, you could tell that some of the stuff was like, because they don't have as much meat selection as we do here. Like, a lot of the skewers they had would be like piece of meat, piece of fat, piece of meat, piece of fat. Like, they would manufacture like something that has enough fat balance to be enjoyable to eat, but you're also just eating like the straight up cut off fat from the animal instead of like having it naturally part of your
instead
steak.
Of meat.
Yeah.
I think that's...
And it would be good. I mean, as long as they cooked it all the way through. They like their raw chicken, their medium rare chicken.
Yes, but they can do it because their food system isn't fucked. So like their chicken are clean. They're not disgusting and sick while they're alive. So like you can eat it raw, like it's or rare. You can eat it rare because there's no.
I had a ton of raw eggs in Japan. Put it in soup. Wouldn't cook all the way. It's kind of weird. You get to the bottom of the bowl and it would just be like all of a sudden way thicker.
You're like, there's a lot of egg white in here. Yeah. I love raw eggs. I think the white wigs me out a little bit, but like raw egg yolk, like making ramen and then just putting an egg yolk in there, like.
I went to one extremely cool udon noodle restaurant. It was almost like a Chipotle, where they had like an assembly line going on, but they are making the udon fresh. And I have pictures of the whole process.
Is there a place like that in the United States that does noodles like that, like Chipotle? Like build your own?
I don't know. Probably.
Like a chain?
Probably, but like, it's not I don't think it would be a chain. I don't know, though. Let me pull up the right album.
Nothing comes to mind when I think about it. Like, I keep spilling this rosé. I don't know how.
There. So you'd like walk in, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a line all across here. But this whole section is where they like boil the noodles. They have these big nets for them. And so they'll just kind of like leave them in the nets and then take them out and put them in cold water. But you can see like a little bit of the dough up there. They let the dough like sit and they have enough of it stockpiled that it's always fresh. They run it through something that basically rolls it into a thin sheet from like a dough ball. And then they'll take that and they'll run it through like a processor that cuts it into strands, and then they'll throw that in the boiler. Once that comes out, you can have it hot or cold. They'll add a broth to it instead of what it's boiled in, and you can put whatever you want. They also had tempura and stuff there.
Dude.
That's what I had one of the times I went. Like the bright orange raw egg yolk, scallions. I had like a meat.
And that's a whole egg. That's a whole egg.
Yeah.
It's not just the yolk. That's a whole fucking egg.
Yeah, and you can take as many of those as you want. And then that's all the tempura I had, which was amazing too. This great dipping sauce that they had. And the udon was just nice. It was chewy. It was cooked perfectly. The broth was great. It had an amazing flavor to it. Like that was nothing like I've had in the U.S. And that was
it looks amazing. For people who are just listening, I guess I should describe it. It's big ass pieces of shrimp tempura. What's the tempura back there? What's all that?
There was an onion, and so like they filleted it up into little strands, but kept the root, and then they dunked the whole thing. Kind
of like a blooming onion a little bit?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
They had shrimp, they had chicken, they had vegetables, a lot of different stuff, just all nicely fried, ready to go. And you just went down the conveyor line. It's like, all right, I want that, and then they check out what you've taken out. They look at what you have on your tray, and they ring you up. It's so easy and convenient.
That's brilliant. Brilliant. I wish there was a place like that around here where I could just get some fucking quick noodles. I love noodles.
I'd get these bento boxes like every day for lunch, unless we went out somewhere or I got dinner somewhere nice. It wouldn't be a ton of food. This is like a macaroni salad. It'd have some sort of pickled, either like I forget what this was. It was some type of fruit, I believe.
It's like dark red. Could be a plum or kind of looks like a plum.
They would pickle that. It could have been radish too.
Oh yeah.
It might not have been I forget this particular one. But then they'd have a little bit of cold noodles, a little bit of vegetables, and then like something nicely fried. It'd still be crispy even though it was cold. And then they'd have like just a whole tray of rice, which I would do stuff with. All the guys that I worked with, they would bring like tuna flakes or like special like wasabi flavored, sesame flavored salts to season it with. all these little things that they would do with their plain rice to make it taste better, and then a little cup of miso soup paste that you. It was a great little lunch every day.
Miso soup is amazing.
It's good for you, man. That's another bacteria at play.
Oh yeah, dude. Miso and miso production is so interesting because you start with koji and then you get miso, and then what blew my mind in that Noma fermentation book is that the juice, when you press miso into blocks, right?
Mm-hmm.
The juice that comes off of that is soy sauce. It show you. And I was like, dude, so all these processes that just come from the soybean yield like miso paste, koji, soy sauce, all these different things.
I didn't know edamame was soybean.
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
I don't feel like such an idiot for not knowing that.
And you can eat it. You eat it and it's delicious. It's like this sweet bean. But then you can get this intensely salty sauce that is like integral to Chinese, Japanese cooking, or just Eastern style cooking, all just from this one fucking bean.
Mm-hmm. It's like what we do with corn.
Exactly. I feel like more so like what like their corn is rice. Like their like rice wine. Mochi is made out of like when they pound rice into like that dough.
Yep.
Which is, I love watching those videos.
Pretty fucking cool, and it always makes you feel like scared for the person like moving the dough for the guy who's got the big wooden hammer coming down on him.
Or they use like hydraulic presses sometimes too. It's like it just goes like every second.
Yeah.
And they're like putting their hand on the bottom and scraping it, and I'm like, dude, like you're gonna crush your finger.
With udon noodles, you're supposed to make the dough by stepping on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Huh.
Well, all right. I don't know that for sure, but I've heard that, and
this is where a fact checker.
I looked up a recipe, and they recommend putting it in a Ziploc bag, like 2-gallon Ziploc bag, and having enough room for it to move around in there, and they would just step on it. So they sanitary, but also, I guess you could probably just use a modern mixer for it too.
Yeah, that's the thing. Is like a lot of older techniques kind of fade out because it's just like, oh, well, a KitchenAid will just do that, but more uniformly.
Yeah, it's like, all right, you can knead this for 20 minutes or you can put it in the mixer for 2.
Yeah, choose one.
Yeah. Yeah. Which one would you rather do if you have to make 10 of these in a day?
It's interesting.
100 of these in a day.
It's interesting because circling back to bread making, a lot of people are like, no, you need to do this by hand. And then everybody wants to do it by hand, and you do it by hand, and it's great. You're covered in dough and whatever. But then as soon as people are like, I want to be a baker, I want to make bread at volume, then immediately you just can't. Like you can start off that way. You can try to do it. Maybe you can sell 50 loaves. You know, maybe you can do
workers that are going to do it for you.
But exactly. And as soon as you start hiring people, costs go up, equipment price goes up, and it's like, okay, well. It's like either make all these bread by hand and sell them and get to say this is handmade. So you charge an extra $1, but then you don't sleep. You lose your life because you're spending 6+ extra hours.
You come to the realization that it's pretty good if you just don't overdo the mixing.
Yeah.
When you use a mixer. Like as long as you don't develop the gluten too much, unless that's what you're going for, you can use a mixer and it's very similar results, if not the same. I'm not a professional. I won't say it's the same. There's probably like layering that occurs when you do it by hand that's different. But
well, I don't know, because you go to these bakeries that, you know, make tons of money selling bread, and their bread is incredible, and they're all using stand mixers.
You can make it good using a stand mixer, so why are you increasing the cost and the work and driving up an economy that doesn't, like, it's not necessary.
I think
and that's why things get over processed, because eventually it's too much.
Yeah, 100%. You can only make so much stuff before your quality starts falling off. What was I going to say? Oh, in Korean cooking, there's this concept. I don't know the Korean word for it. I'm not even going to try. But it basically means like the taste of the hand. And for me, making bread at home and choosing, like I have a KitchenAid, but I don't use it. Like I'll mix it by hand.
Pastries and cookies have that made by hand feeling to them.
Yeah, exactly. They're not all the same size. And they don't have to be.
The
And that's
process was done in so many intricate ways that you do in small batches rather than large.
Mhm.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I think it's a great gift for people to do is cookies. So you don't need too many yourself, but it's fun to bake them in large batches and to give them to other people. I think is a very nice thing that has some intrinsic like value to it rather than something that you could just purchase for someone.
Yeah,
So if you can do something cheap, that's great, and you can give it out to a lot of people. Why is that a bad thing? You know?
true. Half the fun of making bread is making 2 loaves and giving one away.
Yeah. Because it's cool to share like the process that went into it, and people love that. People love the story behind what they're eating, and like that's why it's fun to do it at a local level so you can experience more of that.
Mhm.
The tactile feel of making dough by hand is certainly something that's more enjoyable in of itself when you get to experience it in not overwhelming quantities. That it's nice to do that instead of make it with a mixer. If you have the time and the energy to do it and it doesn't ail you, it's fun to fucking knead dough.